moving away from gymnastics, if we look at men's basketball and women's basketball, this year both teams were able to take home the gold, but you have a different kind of controversy with Caitlin Clark not being a part of the team. So you have this rookie who's the most highly touted player ever in women's basketball. And that's not saying she's the best yet. That's not saying like she's the most legendary or anything. But when I say highly touted, it's the fans are so interested in her. Like, I looked at the statistics this year and actually had the opportunity to attend a Caitlin Clark game when they played in LA.
No doubt.
And the fanship is just insane. It's like back when Magic and Bird were first changing the NBA. It's like that's what we're watching with her and Angel Reese, you know, propelling this forward. So women's basketball was already gaining steam, was already gaining momentum. And I've been a women's basketball fan for a while. I really like Diana Taurasi. I really appreciate Paige Beckers. I've been watching Juju Watkins since she was a freshman, playing at Windward before she transferred to Sierra Canyon. But now, this Caitlin Clark wave is like no joke. Since she was in college.
She's different. Like, she's completely different. And on top of that, like, she brings it in, I guess, similar, not similar, but to like a Taylor Swift type of deal where you're bringing somebody, so many fans. Like they said, they're bringing in a ton more revenue than they used to before. And then the funny part is, like, almost all the WNBA players, they hate her.
Yeah, it's like you have this situation where most other teams are bringing in somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 fans, and their average for the Fever was like 12,000.
Yeah.
It's like 12,000 fans. It's like more than double. So if it's a very obvious situation where that's bringing revenue, that's bringing viewership, that's bringing eyes, and it's a good player, it's not just the circus, it's not just like a media show, that decision to not take her to the Olympics, I think, is tough. And so a lot of people go off the merit of, you know, she's not the best player yet. She hasn't paid her dues. She hasn't been around.
Right?
But ultimately, what other space in professional sports right now doesn't have the financial dollars and the viewership in the game plan? Like, anybody writing a business plan for the NBA, NFL, MLB,
100%.
The viewership is going to be within there. So, I mean, not taking Caitlin Clark, I think, was a big hit for USA. And although they won the gold, which was their, eighth gold in a row?
Eighth gold in a row. Like, it's not even close. Like, USA women's basketball is completely unstoppable.
Yeah.
There's nothing else.
I mean, so you have that. There's so many talented players. Aja Wilson, you have Sabrina Ionescu, you have Kelsey Plum, you have Brianna Stewart, you know, all these.
Speaking of that, I got some Sabrinas.
Yeah?
Some shoes. They're freaking sick.
Those are fresh. Those are fresh. Now, some of the girls who I train here, they've been rocking those, and I'm like, those are sweet. So shout out to her.
I got them, so.
Shout out to her for making a tight shoe with Nike.
I don't get it. I'm like, if WNBA is like not quite profitable yet, and then you got somebody like Caitlin Clark who's like bringing more money, you're gonna literally be like, no, we're not gonna take you to the Olympics just because. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it you can tell is the political side of it. I mean, you see the same thing on the men's side with not taking Jaylen Brown. So you have Jaylen Brown, who was the MVP in the NBA Finals, and two of his teammates who played under him are on the team and getting minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And so Stephen A. Smith, for example, he always brings it to, Nike, you know, there was this big Nike rift, and Nike has a lot of influence with USA basketball. But when things are so blatantly obvious like that, like, Jaylen Brown is the MVP of this. He's the first or second best player on the Boston Celtics. You have two of his teammates on the team, and this is the team representing the United States, right? So you find that there's so many things that are happening on the back end from a political standpoint. And is there a way to regulate something like that becomes the question.
I also think, like, is there a fit?
Right.
Because maybe he didn't fit. Because you know how the international game is completely different than the NBA game.
Yeah.
So maybe they're saying, all right, you don't fit in this role because we have somebody else in that role, but your other teammates, maybe they fit a role player role. Maybe this guy's a little bit bigger for the situation.
Yeah.
So,
what you have is like, what happens so much is like NBA specifically, people catch a rep, right? Like Kyrie Irving, when COVID was around, he was catching such a bad rep.
Yeah,
and Mark Cuban had an interview not too long ago where he was going through that question of like, why did you know that Kyrie and Luka would be a fit? And he's like, I didn't really know, but he's like, I just asked around players, and players loved him. And he was originally feeling like Kyrie's a team killer, but he went and started to ask players, and all the players loved him. So that becomes the question so much with professional sports. With youth sports, kids a lot of times don't know yet how to even judge things like that. And, they're taking my playing time, and I like my friend more, and this and that. But at the professional level, although they're still human beings and they still have attitudes and they still have like emotions, more often you can just ask the players, you know, where's the chemistry? And they'll let you know. Yeah, this person fits well, this person doesn't fit well. And I'd be hard pressed to feel like they didn't like, you know, Jaylen Brown that way. So
you never know. I mean, they might have been like, all right, we already got somebody else in that spot, and we don't think we want to put him into that spot. And I mean, even going back to the Caitlin Clark situation, like, didn't Anthony Davis go with the Olympic team when he was like a rookie or right before he got drafted?
I mean, it's not unprecedented to have a rookie be with the Olympic team in like any sport, but the Caitlin Clark situation is so hard because when things get brought to you in advance, that's when you usually know there's like, I'm not going to say foul play, but that's when you know that there's political things happening on the back end.
100%.
Like, it's different if a decision comes out and the world is shocked. Yeah. Like, oh, nobody was talking about this, nobody's thinking about this, the decision comes out and you go, what? Like, whoa, can we backtrack this? No, it's too late. But people were prefacing this for months. Like, Olympics are coming up, Caitlin Clark over in France is going to be killing it, the viewership, the eyes, and this and that. And they were waiting. When the rosters came out, people were like, this is a mistake. And then it became some of the biggest news in the country.
I think it's got to be the powers that be. Like,
100%.
The NBA players, the top NBA players, I'm not NBA, but WNBA players, they're probably like, nah, we don't want this kid in here yet.
Well, you have that, but then also, it's just like any other professional sport where the people who are at the top of the food chain, they call the shots a lot. In the NBA, LeBron has a lot more control than even the coaches, and sometimes even pulling things with commissioners and not all the way to ownership. But on the women's side, like you said, if you have some of the top players who are like, look, this girl's been down with us, or this girl's been around, we want her to go. Or if there's like team meetings happening behind the scenes, or say even like the person putting the WNBA team together, if they bring in the top 4 players and say, hey, we have this dilemma right now, we're thinking about bringing player number 10 or bringing Caitlin Clark, what do you guys think? And if they go, well, you know, player number 10 has been around and she's paid her dues, so we think that if it's on the fence, you should take her. But the thing to realize, if you're the person making these decisions, it's not on the fence. Like, if you have a person who is single-handedly, like one individual, who's going to double your viewership, double your fanship, double the ability to bring in new fandom,
I mean,
it's a no-brainer. Like, ultimately, professional sports is a business. It's not, we're not doing this for play, we're not doing this for health. When you and I were playing professional sports, the first thing that always comes is the contract negotiation. Like, before you start talking about role and how many sets you're going to get and who's going to play what, the first thing is contract negotiation. So if you're a international program looking to build your brand, like the WNBA, it's not like you're the NFL. Like, NFL set up in a way where even Tua Tagovailoa can get hurt, and the Miami Dolphins aren't going to miss a beat with fans coming to the game.
They're still going to come.
That's just the way it is. But with WNBA, it's proven. If Caitlin Clark's in the building, you will double the people who show up for you. If Caitlin Clark's not in the building, you will lose potentially half the people who would show up for you. And that's not just an in-the-moment thing. That puts a bad taste in people's mouths for the future. If they're like, look, this is our person who's going to take us to the next level, and you're not giving them the opportunity to go, that's it. Like, even Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan went with the Olympic
team.
Still
in the negative. Like, that's the thing. Like, even in the revenue you look at in WNBA, it's still in the negative. So Caitlin Clark might be trying to move that up. And
well, I mean, is moving the needle. Look, this year, look at how many people, like you talked about the Sabrinas, look at how many women are getting shoe deals. Look at how many women are getting commercials. Like, look at how much the WNBA is on TV. I've watched no less than 6 WNBA games this year. And last year, I couldn't tell you if it was even on TV. Like, I'm being serious. Even before the playoffs, which are happening right now, I couldn't tell you if the WNBA was even on TV. And now this year, I've seen no less than 6 games. And, like, my business partner, Lynn, is always watching WNBA. Like, every time I pop in the office, it's like WNBA game on, WNBA game on, all the time. So, it's not 100% because of Caitlin Clark, but it would not be happening the way it is without Caitlin Clark. And so,
even if it's not 100%, it's mostly.
For sure.
So you can say 60, 70, 80%, whatever it is. Most of it is because of her.
For sure. I mean, it would be the equivalent of saying, like, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Michael Jordan weren't responsible for, like, the increase of NBA coming from tape delay to being what it is now. Like, of course, there's other people involved. Of course, they didn't do it alone. But without those people, it doesn't happen.
Not at all.
Right. So Olympics, I mean, you have so many teams who were from the USA and had like really good runs, but there was a lot of surprising stuff. So if we look at gymnastics, like we said, Simone Biles did her thing, and Team USA did their thing, but there was a little bit of controversy with the other areas. The men's team ended up taking a bronze, which they were stoked on. Like, I watched that live when it was happening, and the men's team, I don't think, has gotten bronze for like a lot of years. And you could see the excitement and the joy because in the men's side, I believe it's China and Japan who crush it. I might be misquoting the Japan, but I know for sure China's one of them, and I believe it's Japan who crushed it, and they took the gold and the silver. But the men's team to medal, like, that was a really big deal for them. But when other sports happen, there's a little bit more disappointment. So if you look at track, where Noah Lyles wanted to win everything, he did gold in, what was it, 200 meter? The 100 meter.
I think it was in the one.
The 100 meter, but then he ended up catching COVID and taking bronze in the 200 meter. So when it happened in real time, everybody was like trying to figure out what happened. He's like laying on the ground, can't stand up.
So bad,
and they come to find out he ended up having COVID. Like,
it's so rare now too, because you don't hear people having it anymore.
Totally, and not like with crazy symptoms, but I mean, it shows you it can happen at any level and can be such an effect. So it's impressive to still be able to pull off an Olympic medal, like the best people in the world at your sport.
And you're
still pull off an Olympic medal with COVID, but such bad timing for that guy. That's bad timing. And he had so much controversy going into it, with his statements about the NBA, how it's not like did you hear about that?
I heard some of it, but I didn't get the whole deal.
Yeah, basically he made this statement a while back, like, world champions of what? Like, they don't play against like the rest of the world type of situation. So a lot of NBA players took offense to that.
I mean, it's true. Like, technically, we don't play against the rest of the world. I mean,
it's like it's the United States Championship.
We should have more. Yeah, we should have more international competitions. I see what he means, but I'm like, you get the best international players to come and play in the league anyway, so it's all the same.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so Sha'Carri Richardson too. Like, everybody was so excited to see her finally run because she got it stripped from her last time.
Yeah.
So being in the Olympics this time and then taking silver in the 100 meter was like, I mean, just it shows you how impressive athletes are getting to this day and age, where I feel 40 years ago in the Olympics, things were so much, okay, here's the fastest person, here's their training regimen, if they don't get hurt, this is going to be the situation. And now there's these people who you've never heard of who pop up all around the world who are beating, some of the biggest names, and it's happening in every sport. So basketball ended up pulling it off, getting the golds, but not without challenge. Like, Steph Curry had to show up super clutch, LeBron had to show up super clutch. Like, to be able to pull that off on the women's side, it was a battle all the way through when they were playing France. But overall, like, the world is putting together such impressive sports at this point, which is cool. It's like, it's cool to see the build.
Everybody can play now.
Exactly.
It's different.
It's cool to see the build. It's cool to see the training. It's good to see the commitment and everything. It makes it really fun. It brings in more revenue. It brings in more job opportunities. It brings in more viewership. And ultimately, it brings more community. Because what I say all the time is, like, the three things that bring community are communication, music, and sports. Those three things bring people together who, like, have no business communicating with each other, and people who originally wouldn't even like each other.
Otherwise, they wouldn't talk.
Exactly. If they can find community within a team, if they can find community within a genre of music, think of, like, when you go to a concert, if you've ever been to a concert, where, like, somebody's song comes on, they just turn to the person next to them who they don't even know, and just, like, rock out with them.
Start singing to them.
Same situation in the sports game.
No doubt.
If you and I are Cowboys fans, unfortunately, and we go to a Cowboys game and they score a touchdown, you could look left, you could look right at the strangers, and it's going to be an embrace like you guys have known each other for 20 years. So
that's the thing. I think just with even the Olympic basketball, like, we have to now fight for everything.
Yes.
Like, way back in the day, at least on the men's side, way back in the day, it used to just, you roll into getting the gold.
For sure.
Now it's like every single team is good. Almost every single top team has, like, at least 3 players that are in the NBA now.
Yeah.
And so now it's a complete battle than what it used to be.
It's crazy to see the way the NBA has progressed, but we'll get there when we get there. So